A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing is important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after.
It's locked down and away we go. Great start from beautiful. Wing come up the inside. McLaughlin gets it. The Red Bull Racing man has got through the champions of the job. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Round 9 Automobilista Australia Super Series action coming to you live from Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. My name's Stairs, and as always I'm joined in, well, not as always, usually it's Nether. Tonight I'm joined by Madbird for Apex Rear Wing Broadcasting. How are you, Madbird?
I'm good, Stairs. How are you? I've driven these cars a bit. I haven't commentated on them before. I'm very excited for tonight's proceedings.
Well, so you should be. We're on the verge of potentially crowning our very first Automobilista Australia champion. Brenton Hobson holds a commanding lead in the points at the moment over Lewis Wedding. We still have Will Devenish and Aidan Schultz mathematically in with a chance of winning this championship. Madbird, have you got the points in front of you there?
I do indeed. So, as you say, heading the championship, we have the incomparable Brenton Hobson with 238 points and a swath of first and second place finishes to his name. Behind him, his closest rival, Lewis Wedding, 146 points. Missed half the season. It would be interesting to see where he'd be if he had competed in the first 3 races. Will Devenish, close third with 132 points, and Aidan Schultz 127. 5th place Johnny in the Repsol Racing car, 117 points, and Brock Harvey in 6th in the high voltage go-karting, 113 points. Matt Williams, El Chief as he is known in the K-Mad car, 106 points. Lee Sanford 77, Cracker in 62, and Corey Ott with only 2 races under his belt, 2 sets of races under his belt, 4 finishes, heads out the top 10 with 59 points. So pretty close at the top, Stairs. I feel like I've been missing something.
Pretty close apart from the first and second places, which, as you mentioned, is something of a... I mean, it's not completely sealed, but it'll be very, very difficult for anyone but Brenton Hobson to win tonight. I think there are any number of ways that the championship can be won, but the most likely would be that he gets 2 podiums, because regardless of what Lewis Wedding does, if Brenton Hobson is on the podium twice tonight, he will win the championship. Effectively, what he needs to do is lead by 80 points or 81 points or more at the end of tonight, and then that's all she wrote in terms of sealing the deal.
Absolutely. And speak of the devil, Hobson has just joined the game, showing up with 2.5 minutes to go until qualifying. Typical Hobson.
Nothing new there. Arrive and drive.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. As you say, it will be a bit of luck that will keep Lewis in this championship, along with the others. But Hobson, if anyone can find a way to cheat themselves of a podium, I'd say it's probably Brenton Hobson.
We saw Johnny doing quite well last week as well. He doesn't seem to have eventuated in the server just yet, but he's the man at the moment poised to take over if Will Devenish slips up at the lead of the Pro B runners. So Will Devenish leading that one with 132 points. We're going to now just quickly flick over. We haven't really been able to keep track of these in previous broadcasts, but now as we're getting towards the business end of the championship, we're just going to look at the Pro-Am classification, which is a bit of a messy one there. As you can see, there's 2 guys there with the promoted next to their names, and those gentlemen are Philip Boak and Brenton Foley, now racing as Pro B runners, so they will no longer be collecting points for this classification, which means we're in the strange position of our championship leader very, very likely to lose that championship lead this round, even though he is racing tonight. So Philip Boak on 108 points, with Luke just 3 points behind him. And David Keane, who's been racing quite well of late, although I don't think I can see him in the server just yet. So there's a few people potentially missing here when there's a lot to play for.
Absolutely, and currently in the server we've got Sam Dunstall, who I seem to remember having a blitzing debut in the V8s and then never showing up again. He's currently 7/10 up on Lewis Wedding in first position, so potentially, if Hobson doesn't get switched on, a podium might not be a foregone conclusion.
No, well, Sam Dunstall's been looking the goods in the practice session, as you mentioned there. He appears to have done a fair bit of preparation tonight. Before we go more in depth into it, was the practice session's about to wrap up, so we'll just have a look at the race details for tonight before we roll on into qualifying. As we mentioned before, we are here at Imola, the Autodromo Enzo Adino Ferrari, circuit that's undergone many changes over the years since it, I think it first started being used as a racetrack in the 1950s, and since then various chicanes have been added due to the obviously very well-known high-profile accidents and fatalities at this circuit. And so we've got the Tamburello chicane, the Villeneuve chicane. We are using the current version of this circuit, which incidentally the Variante Bassa at the bottom of the hill after the second Ravazza is not there. It's a straight shoot straight from Ravazza 2 through across the start-finish line and to Tamburello. But more on that later when we jump into the qualifying session. We'll be able to go on board with someone. But we have two 12-lap races for tonight, which means that each race will be a short sprint of 58.9 kilometres. No pit stops, just the 12 laps. You and the other competitors, and whoever's first at the end of it is the winner.
So it's pure driving, basically. No strategy to worry about. Just gloves on the wheel and pedal to the metal, and go as fast as you humanly can. Yes. No, you don't want them to catch up. That's the point.
Very good. Well, we're just looking on board with Sam Dunstall at the moment at the end of the pit lane. I believe that's Topher in front of him, and waiting for the light to go green. Or Sam Dunstall's exited back into his garage there, so perhaps he forgot to take fuel out for a low fuel quality run. We've got Johnny in the server. That's good. We saw some excellent racing from him last week, although he hasn't practiced much. So Topher, our first man out on the racetrack at the moment, followed by Brenton, Foley, Will Devonish and Johnny. So 4 cars on track so far and more on their way.
Absolutely. A mini challenge safety car, not something I've seen before. They're lurking ominously at the end of the pit lane. A safety car is a possibility in this series, Stairs?
Certainly is, and we saw last week as Topher goes off at Villeneuve there, and I'm sure that won't be the first time someone goes off at Villeneuve tonight. Sorry, the last time rather, as everyone else goes by on their outlaps. To finish my point, yes, the safety car is a distinct possibility, and it has been a feature in quite a few of the races we've had so far this season, with Brenton Hobson losing race 1 on the safety car restart last week in race 1.
That's not ideal. It's not what you want. In an ideal world, that is. To have a safety car ruin your race is probably one of the worst things that can befall you as a racing driver. So, although I won't say I don't hope any safety cars come out, I won't say that I hope no safety cars come out, because they do provide a bit of spice. I do hope the race isn't severely compromised as a result of one.
Well, they certainly have created spice in the races where we've seen them, and that has been, well, I remember we've had one, I think, in every single round back to with Phillip Island, Barbagallo, Winton. We had one, Hidden Valley. I think Monza was the last time we didn't have one, and that was some 4 rounds ago. But we've got Brenton Foley coming out of the final corner now, so we're going to jump on board with him and take you around a lap, as he is the first man on track, and he is going to set the first benchmark time in this qualifying session. So straight lining this, I use the word straight in relative terms, I suppose. It's a little bit curved here and there, and technically there are corners along there, turn 16 and 17, but certainly not anything you need to worry about braking for. While I've been talking, he's been going through the Tamburello chicane. Used to be a flat-out left-hander in downforce cars, definitely wouldn't be in these cars, but nonetheless we're doing this version of the circuit, and a lot of inside curb there for Brenton Foley as he goes over the Variante Villeneuve and into Tosa, which is one of quite a few overtaking opportunities on what is quite a wide track compared to many of the Australian tracks that we've been to. This is incidentally one of my favourite tracks, and I've been looking forward to this round for some time. And a little bit of a glitch there on the game as Foley goes around Piratella and down the hill towards the mineral water corner, or Acqua Minerale as the Italians call it. Double right-hander. Reminds me of a bit like Degna 1 and 2 of Suzuka, except they're downhill, so it's even more challenging. And up the hill, another good overtaking point into the Variante Alta, one of the tightest, well, the tightest chicane on the racetrack. Very easy to get that one wrong. And now we're going downhill, bit of a left-right, and this isn't considered a corner, but it certainly is flat out, and very easy to lock it up and go into the gravel trap here at the bottom of the hill into Ravazza 1. And you want to get a really nice exit here because it is a long straight towards Tamburello. So what can Foley set as our benchmark time? You're coming out of the final corner. It's quite a long way to the start-finish straight, so you certainly don't want to muck up the corner at any stage. And it's... oh, he must have corner cut. I reckon that might have been at the Villeneuve circuit, at the Villeneuve corner, because that's where he took a lot of curbs. So he is now starting his second time lap, but the first one didn't register. So at the moment it's Sam Dunstall in the box seat with a 46.4.
Absolutely, well called, Stairs. Yeah, I think he may have, as you say, cut it at Villeneuve. Although I wouldn't have thought he would have gotten an advantage from his line through there. But nevertheless, staying on board with him at the moment, myself anyways, he's now 4.5 tenths up on fastest time, which I think was Will Devenish's when he set that sector. Sam Dunstall has since gone 3 tenths faster than Devenish, so be interesting to see Brenton Foley's pace as he was. I remember in the early V8 races, he was one of the ones I had my eye on, but then he got relegated back down to Pro-Am, but rightly, I believe, now up in, oh, that may be a cut, going through Acqua Minerale.
We'll see. He's a driver who, he did do a lot of practice for that Simmons Plains race where we first called him, and then unfortunately unfamiliarity with the way the pit stops work compromised his race significantly there, and I reckon he would have been on for a podium in that race had that not happened. But he's been scoring podiums in Pro AB after his promotion back after his stint in the Pro-Am series, and incidentally his windscreen still says Pro-Am there, but that's a folly. It's Pro B, and he definitely deserves to be up there because he's been beating quite a few of the Pro AB guys, and he comes across the line to set the provisional pole time, so he has trounced Dunstall's time by 7 tenths of a second. Dunstall's still on a lap himself. Devenish goes second and Johnny in third. Let's see what Dunstall has as a response. He's coming across the line in a few moments' time, and what is the time going to be from Sam Dunstall? He goes second and 3 tenths slower than Brenton Foley.
Incredible pace there from the Brenton you don't hear quite so much about compared to Brenton Hobson.
Well, speaking of Brenton Hobson, he's still in the... I believe he's still in the pit lane. He hasn't set a lap time.
Sorry to cut across. He is currently going through Villeneuve by the looks of it, heading down towards Tosa on his out lap. So I guess we're about to see if he can split the wheat from the chaff.
Yes, forgive the stutteriness of the stream at the moment. I'm on my other screen just trying to sort out the timing screen so I can see who is in the pits, and now I have done that, so the stream should fix itself. We've got Will Devenish, Topher and Matt Williams in the pits at the moment. Everyone else is on the racetrack, and thankfully for everyone it is a wide circuit, so, or rather a long circuit, so traffic isn't as much of an issue as it otherwise might have been. Having said that, a lot of the cars at the moment are going through the first sector, and that includes David Keane, Cam Rutledge, Brendan Ross, and it's funny how they all sort of clump in certain parts of the track at once.
Sam Dunstall setting a purple second sector. So going to be interesting to see what his time is going to be at the end of this lap. Looks like Hobson's gotten caught being lapped by Sam Dunstall. So did we see any pace from Hobson in quali, or in practice rather?
No, I don't think he got a chance to set any times. And Dunstall was looking like the foreman in the practice session. He was well quicker than Lewis Wedding, but I imagine Lewis Wedding was doing low fuel runs and maybe he was disguising his pace a little bit, as Dunstall shaves a couple of tenths off of his best lap, but still not enough so Foley's time staying there for the time being. It'll be something. Well, if I can get the sentence out, that will be something that he will be quite proud of, I would expect, because there's some quick guys gunning for that time, and so far no one has managed to do it. Just trying to see where people like Lewis Wedding and Brenton Hobson are at the moment. Hobson's still not set a time. We're
going through Villeneuve currently. I'm just on board with him at the moment. He's 4 tenths down on the fastest time, so.
And Lewis Wedding is about to set his first time, and it's only going to be good enough for third. So I'm sure that he will improve, but that's it's all quite close at the moment.
Absolutely, and yeah, Brenton Hobson not clicking with the car at the moment. It is only his first lap out, obviously, but they only have another 6 minutes and 20 seconds left in this session, so he'd certainly be wanting to get into his groove as fast as possible and punch in a couple of hot laps.
Well, we know that he learns very, very quickly, and although he's not quite at the pace yet, this is effectively his first practice laps, and even though he's 5 tenths off the pace, I'm sure that he will be understanding where he's losing the time and where he needs to improve, because he seems to have that innate ability to know where he's fast and where he's not. And got to say, the way he tackles Ravazza 1 and Ravazza a little bit wide.
Johnny goes first fastest with a time that is 5 tenths faster than Brenton Foley's. So where the hell did that come from?
Well, Johnny we saw doing some excellent qualifying times last week, and just sort of fell off in the race. The race pace wasn't quite there, but Johnny is a fantastic qualifier, and showing that despite not being around in practice today, he has obviously got the pace in the in this circuit. So maybe some offline practicing for Johnny.
Absolutely, that is an immense time. That is almost a 1:45 dead. It's going to be...
Yes, I'm surprised too.
Absolutely. Brenton Hobson now 4 tenths up on his previous lap, only just over 100th, down on Johnny's time. So never mind what I said before, Hobson.
Well, Brenton Hobson, the man to watch at the moment, because he's ever on the improve. 4 tenths up will jump him ahead of Lewis Wedding, who, from a championship perspective, is probably the only man he cares about. No disrespect to Will Devonish and Aidan Schultz, but he is already ahead of those two guys. Well, Aidan Schultz, I don't think, is actually in the server at the moment. Will Devonish is in 6th place, and Johnny... No, what's happened there? Someone's switched positions. Devonish has gone 4th, so that's interesting. So Will Devonish showing a turn of pace at the moment. That's something that he'll be happy for. Brenton Hobson's got the headlights on and looking to improve on this lap. Although the championship is something that is in our minds, it's not something that he seems to be thinking too much about when he goes race to race. He's just thinking about victories, and that's what he's aiming for.
Absolutely, it's probably a good way to be. Really, he's not overawed by the fact that he's leading the championship. He's just punching in times, and there he goes, 2 tenths down on Johnny in 2nd position. Just 2 laps it took him. Well, 3 laps if you include his out lap, which I wouldn't. But 2 laps it took him to bounce himself up into the podium places in qualifying. So at this rate, never mind what I said before, a podium may be a foregone conclusion.
Well, yes. I mean, given the sort of pace that Hobson has had throughout this series, it's not something that I don't think was ever in doubt. Too many double negatives in that sentence. But Lewis Wedding is the man to watch at the moment. What can he do to respond? Because he's quite... He had a bit of a lean patch in the middle of the series, but at the moment he's on a good run of form. He's got 3 podiums in a row. having won last week in Phillip Island in race 1, finished 3rd in Barbagallo at the second race, and he looks like he's got a bit of an uphill battle at the moment because there are some fast... Johnny seems like he's going to be a hard man to beat. Brenton Foley's got some pace this week, and Sam Dunstall is also looking like someone who is not going to roll over easily as well, and Lewis Wedding is 0.5 of a second off of Johnny at the moment.
Absolutely, which might be enough to put him
And he's
in
caught
front.
traffic.
And he's stuck behind Mr. Escudero, who appears to not be helping him at all in terms of getting it. Oh my goodness.
And there's a collision.
Oh my god.
So Lewis Wedding frustrated in that helmet. Escudero, I mean, if Escudero was on a timed lap, then he's not really under any obligation to get out of the way. It's Lewis Wedding's, it is Lewis Wedding's responsibility to leave a gap when he starts his flying lap
Absolutely,
to the car ahead. But having
that-
said that, you know, there is a disparity between some of the faster guys here and the slower guys, and at the moment Escudero's down there in 17th place, 8 seconds off the pace, so he might have thought he had
it. Escudero slammed the brakes on, so potentially was trying to let Lewis pass, just didn't realise that Lewis was right beside him.
Well, we're going to have a look at that. We're just going to rewind the tape, have a little bit of an onboard cheeky view from Lewis Cam here. And here we are going down the hill towards Ravazza. And yeah, that was completely Escudero's fault. There was nothing Lewis Wedding could have done. He was directly behind him. Escudero just slams the brakes on there. So whether, I mean, to give Escudero the benefit of the doubt, he surely didn't realise that Lewis Wedding was directly behind him when he hit the brakes. Otherwise, why would he do that?
Indeed, yeah. He might, like I say, may have thought that he was alongside him and just wanted to, you know, minimise his pain, brake really hard, let Lewis pass, and then just slot in behind him. Maybe.
But having said that, we're not in race, so that, you know, if you're braking and letting someone pass on your qualifying lap, then it's not a lap that you want to keep anyway, because it's not going to be very fast. So you might as well make it very obvious, get well off the racing line, which he wasn't. He was in the middle of the circuit, and I guess we'll just chalk that one down to maybe a little bit of a lack of experience for Escudero, but it's certainly not something we want to see on a continual basis.
Absolutely not. I would love, Stairs, to own one of those houses back there looking out over the Ravazzas. Can you imagine the view from one of those second-story windows?
Well, anyone out looking out their second-story window there would be seeing Lewis Wedding crossing the line with 10 seconds remaining in the session. Actually, 5 seconds remaining in the session, so he only just made it out for another lap, and Lewis Wedding struggling at the moment down in 6th place. That could have been really costly if with Escudero there, because it nearly stopped him from having the opportunity to have another lap. Thankfully, from his point of view and from our point of view as spectators, that he has got this opportunity to have another lap, but it was a very close run thing.
Absolutely. He is a 10th down on Johnny, which would be enough to put him in front of Hobson. He's got to keep it together throughout the rest of the lap, though.
Hobson has had an off, and so he won't be setting another time. So if Dunstall can't improve and if Wedding can't improve, then Johnny is going to be on pole position.
It is a commanding lap that he's set. I feel like I don't expect Lewis Wedding's going to be able to top that on this lap, just going by the rest of his pace I've seen.
Dunstall was 0.3 off as well, so I don't think that Dunstall is going to have an answer as well.
Lewis is now 0.4 down on the first position, so he would be looking at, what would he be looking at? He'd be looking at maybe 4th position behind Sam Dunstall at the moment.
Well, that graphic would suggest that he's not on a PB, so he must have made a mistake on his best lap.
Absolutely.
Because
he made well
deep.
And
that's it. Lewis Wedding 6th place, so he's behind Will Devonish, he's behind Brenton Foley, he's behind Sam Dunstall, and most importantly from his point of view, he's behind Brenton Hobson, and Johnny with an exquisite pole position. My goodness, are we in for a hell of a race?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the maths again? Hobson needs to get a podium in both races to take away the championship?
Well, I think the most likely thing that we're looking at from an immediate point of view is that if Brenton Hobson wins the race, Lewis Wedding has to finish 5th just to keep it alive to the second race. And given that Lewis Wedding's starting from 6th and Brenton Hobson's starting from 1st, that's sort of like that's a bit of a tantalising equation.
Absolutely. I'm very interested to see how this goes, Des. That may be a very obvious thing to say, but I'm on the edge of my seat.
I certainly am, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have all the action from race 1 here at Imola. Don't go away.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. We come up the inside. McLaughlin gets it to They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Welcome back, everybody. We've just witnessed a very surprising qualifying session. We've seen people out of position, and we've seen a surprising pole position from Johnny. He will start on the front row with Brenton Hobson, who came in after barely a minute's worth of practice and starts the row on the front row of the grid, but in second. So what can he do in the race? All he needs tonight is 2 podiums, and he wins the championship here tonight. We're in warm-up, so there's 3 minutes remaining in the session. There's more cars on track than we normally see, actually, at this stage. Looking at Philip Boak, who was leading the Pro-Am Cup, but he races in Pro B now, so don't let that windscreen there distract you. Philip Boak, who has been one of the strongest runners and a success story of Pro B promotion. And
absolutely, maybe trying to get some extra practice laps in.
Well, yes, it's funny. The warm-up has been something the drivers have been neglecting in weeks of late. They've just sort of been doing what we've been doing and using it as as Scruff calls it, a piss break, which, well, let's be honest, that's what it is. But this week they're using it as an actual warm-up. They're doing laps, and they may be thinking about doing a practice start. I think there is a very, very slight slope on the start-finish straight, which is something that they may need to think about. So, Boak with a massive tank slapper there down at Aqua Minerale.
Yes, I'm watching Lewis Wedding here. Just going through. I don't even know what.
That's Aqua Minerale.
That was Aqua Minerale, yeah.
Yeah.
Catching up to Philip Boak, who had that moment, as you say. So, all on the line for Lewis. Not only does he have to finish 5th if Brenton Hobson takes away the win, which isn't unlikely, he needs to then. What does Lewis need to do in the second? Say Brenton wins the first race.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis comes 5th or higher.
Okay. Yeah.
What does Brenton? Does Brenton have to not win the second race? Like what happen?
Well, frankly, that's the worst case scenario in which it's still mathematically possible for Lewis Wedding. So obviously he would prefer to win the race, and Brenton Hobson has a horrible race and finishes well down the order, because effectively, if Hobson wins and Lewis comes 5th, he basically needs to win every single race from then on until the end of the season, with Brenton Hobson having the most appalling run of bad luck that anyone has ever seen, including, not even a disconnection, I think, would save Lewis Wedding after that if Brenton Hobson starts the race, because points in this series go down to 15th place, and given the number of given the fact that we've got Pro AB and Pro Am runners, even if you and the way the point system works, where you don't actually have to finish the race, which will be rectified for the second Super Series, even if you start a race and disconnect and end up being classified, say, 10th, then you still get 6 points, and that would be enough in that scenario afterwards for Brenton Hobson to win the championship if he were to win race 1 and Lewis Wedding were to come 5th.
Interesting. So it's not going to be of any help to Lewis, but possibly some consolation. He has set in warm-up a lap that is just under a tenth slower than Johnny's lap in qualifying. So,
well, he would have liked that in the qualifying session just gone.
He would have liked, but it does show that he does have the pace when he needs it. So he may very well be able to work his way up the order from his 6th position start. But as you say, you couldn't have pulled that out 5 minutes earlier, Lewis. Like, come on, man.
Well, I mean, you're a self-confessed Lewis Wedding fan. We were looking at Brenton Hobson there as the session comes to an end. Take nothing away from him, he's been the class of the field all season long. Wins have sometimes eluded him, where perhaps we've talked in times about his conversion rate, which has probably been something of a statistic that he probably would like us to forget, because I mean, how's this for a stat? He's had 10 pole positions, and he's only converted 5 of those now into victories, and that's not a statistic that he would be particularly happy with, and it's just, I guess, down to a bit of bad luck, a bit of inexperience, all sorts of things for Brenton Hobson.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, really, because in a lot of ways he's dominating, but he could be so much higher up. Like it's an interesting situation for him to be in.
It is, and the races where he hasn't won, he's been either in control of or had the pace to win. The only ones I can think of were Winton, where we had Dane Warren come in and he finished second to Dane both those races, and Dane Warren was on another level completely, which is a scary thought. But take nothing away from Johnny. What can he do in the race? The pole sitter with an excellent pole position. He just pulled that lap out early in the session, and no one could beat it.
Absolutely, I was rubbing my eyes a little bit as I was looking at the timing boards, because it suddenly showed that Brenton Foley was in 2nd place, and I was like, okay, is it Lewis? Is it Hobson? Which one's
It's Johnny.
Yeah. It's such an unpresuming name. No surname.
Yes, I'm aware of his surname, but I won't mention it on broadcast since he races with Johnny as his moniker. But we're just going to go through the field. Here's Brenton Hobson. Wasn't weaving as much as the others before, but he did decide to do a few little cursory weaves on the way down to Tosa. He starts second. Behind him, Sam Dunstall, who has been He rejoined us after his excellent debut in the V8 Supercars, winning at Phillip Island. Brenton Foley in 4th place. He's really making a name for himself in this series. Will Devonish, one of the guys still mathematically in the championship, down there in 5th place. Lewis Wedding, much lower than we've seen him for some time, down there in 6th. Philip Boak, the man leading the Pro-Am Championship, but racing now as Pro B. Don't let that windscreen fool you. He is Pro B. Topher, I think he actually is the highest qualifying Pro-Am driver, so he is doing his best to win that championship, and great qualifying session for Topher. Rob Dunt, who I didn't actually realise was in the race tonight, so well done to Rob Dunt. He is the Apex Rear Wing 6-hour champion along with Sam Smith, so it's good to see Rob Dunt in this race. Dwayne Davies starts from 10th place. Matt Williams, our L Chief Scruff, as he likes to be known, in their 11th place. Brock Harvey in 12th place. Those two are actually quite close in the championship, so and he's obviously listening to us. He's got the lights on. Hey Brock, good luck in the race. Behind him is Gary Neville and David Keane, one of the best liveries on the racetrack, I must say, David Keane. And Luke is currently 2nd in the Pro-Am Championship by 3 points, and Cam Rutledge there in 16th in one of the guest cars. Brendan Ross 17th. Daniel Escudero probably won't be braking on the racing line during the race, I should hope, and Brian Walsh bringing up the rear there in 19th place as Johnny lines it up on the grid.
Absolutely, well called there, Stez. Sorry, I was mesmerised. Lewis warming those tyres as much as he can. He's dragging half brake as he's flooring it down the straight towards his starting box. So it's going to be. I feel like a lot of this is going to be decided at the beginning of the race, Stairs. It's a short race, 12 laps. So if Lewis can get an incredible jump, get himself up into maybe, third, fourth position, up from a sixth position start, he can then take the fight to Hobson.
He needs to.
Yeah,
we saw he had a tardy start last week in the off second place at Phillip Island, but what can he do today? He needs to make a good start, and he is in 6th place on the left of your screen there, behind Brenton Foley and behind Brenton Hobson. And we've still got a couple of cars there lining up, but no, we're all lined up. We may be crowning a champion at the end of 12 laps here, and off they go. It's been a little bit of a slow start there for Johnny because we got Sam Dunstall looking to the inside and Brenton Hobson nowhere to go. Brenton Hobson relegated down to 3rd place. Foley's losing the position to Will Devonish because Devonish is on the inside. And Johnny and Dunstall go side by side through Tamburello, but it's going to be the inside line for Johnny. Johnny is now in the lead still, and was a little bit of under pressure. Dunstall was under pressure from Brenton Hobson there, but Hobson had to back out of it, and he's lost quite a few car lengths, and he's got Foley on his rear.
Absolutely well called there, Stairs.
I wouldn't say so. Oh, Dunstall up the inside of Johnny, and Johnny's gone wide at Tosa, and it's all checking up. It's nuts to butts from 1st to about 10th. I don't think we've lost anyone, or there's someone down there in the grass at Tosa, and Brian Walsh spinning on the exit. But Johnny still leads after half a lap as they go into Piratella, and that's very wide by a lot of them. I think that's their regular line, but Johnny's gone a little bit too wide and has allowed Dunstall to go side by side through Aqua Minerale. My goodness.
Good Lord. It looks like Brock Harvey has had some problems. He's going very slowly out of Tosa. Lewis Wedding nearly got overtaken by Phil Boak. He had a terrible start, or Phil Boak had an incredible start anyways, but managed to hold him off and hold on to his 6th position. Apart from that, it looks like it has basically remained as standard, other than Sam overtaking Brenton into the Tamburello chicane. Lewis all over the back of Devonish here, just wanting to get by him. He's going to go for the inside into the Ravazzas. He's not going to get the job done. I don't think Devonish closes that door. Lewis loses a little bit of time. But
and Lewis has really hurt his opportunity to get back at Devonish out of Ravazza too, because he's lost quite a few car lengths, and he's going to be under pressure actually there from Philip Boak. Although having said that, Philip Boak didn't get the best exit out of Ravazza too. As we start the 2nd lap, and Brenton Hobson, commentator nightmare right here. He's got the headlights on. Is he going to go down the inside of Tamburello? He's certainly not close enough. And the gap to Johnny between 2nd and 1st, it just seems to be yo-yoing a lot. He gets a bit of a break and then he makes a little bit of a mistake, and Dunstall closes right back up again.
Absolutely. So it's spread out a little bit behind them by the looks of it. Everyone's sort of settling down a tiny bit. The only outlier currently, Brian Walsh, down in 19th position, only just crossing the start-finish line. So it might have been him that had the error, not Brock Harvey in Tosa, because...
I did call that Brian Walsh did spin it. I saw it in the background of the shot at the exit of Tosa, and there was someone else who went wide, and I believe that...
Not exciting. I believe that
isn't it?
Brendan Ross has also had an error going into Villeneuve.
So Will Devonish and Lewis Wedding were sideways going through Aqua Minerale. Lewis Wedding still not able to make that position. He's going to have a look to the outside. Will Devonish covering the inside line down into... Sorry, I'm at the wrong part of the track. We're here at the Variante Alta, and Lewis Wedding keeps that position for now. Lewis Wedding unable to make that position for now. And he'll live to fight on, but he's losing a lot of time to the guys ahead. They're starting to break away just a bit. The top 3 covered by, you can throw a blanket over them. Brenton Foley's not far behind either.
Absolutely. Lewis just needs to get a decent exit from the Ravazzas and get a good run onto Devonish. Looks like they're both locked up going into Ravazza 1. And it doesn't look like either of them has a particularly big advantage coming out of the second one. There will be a small slipstream, but slipstream much less prevalent in these cars than you would expect. Johnny still leading the race at this stage, and Sam Dunstall chasing after him. Hobson probably quite frustrated to be down in 3rd position, but that's That's all he really needs at this stage, just to sort of manage it, and he just hope for a mistake up front.
Well, yes, he certainly needs to pressure them into a mistake. He might be biding his time trying to keep his tyres alive. We know that Johnny struggled late in the race at Phillip Island with tyre wear because he absolutely hangs it out, and the tyres were screaming, and he's very wide through Tosa, but I guess maybe that's just his line. You can take a fair bit of a wide line there onto the AstroTurf. And the trouble with a lot of these braking zones is that because the corners are so fast, the braking zones are quite short. You carry a lot of speed through them, and that makes overtaking particularly difficult when the slipstream is not that prevalent, as you mentioned before.
Absolutely. A terrible first couple of laps for Brendan Ross, down in 19th place. He's actually only just going through the Ravazzas, so he's going to get lapped pretty soon.
And Brian Walsh, Topher's come a cropper somewhere. We haven't seen what's happened there, but he's down there in 18th, and he's now behind Brian Walsh, second last at the moment. So after what was such a great qualifying session for him, Brenton Hobson's drive go-karting teammate down there in 18th at the moment.
And track cuts may be an issue. I just saw Lewis take a fairly as he catches Devonish right in the braking zone for Ravazza 1 and locks his front left. It's a horrible situation for Lewis to be in because he catches Devonish at the worst possible point of the track.
Well, he's close enough to maybe have a little bit of a dive. He'd have to really commit from there, but he is tucked up underneath, and they've made a bit of a break from Philip Boak. He's going to go here. He's going to go down the inside. Will Devonish doesn't defend, but he's not close enough there, and Wedding is a smart racer. He's not going to dive it in there if he doesn't think he can get the job done. But the battle for the lead is still status quo. Johnny leads from Sam Dunstall and Brenton Hobson. None of them able to do anything. This is proving to be a circuit where it is exceedingly difficult to make the overtake work.
Absolutely. Lewis still all over the back of Devonish. I feel like I'm going to be glued to this for most of the race stairs, so I apologise. I am keeping an eye on the rest of the field as well.
Sorry, Sam Dunstall looked like he was going down the inside. Johnny had an interesting line into Piratella, but all of that has caused Brenton Hobson to catch back up to the wing of Sam Dunstall. I just get the feeling he's got a watching brief on this, and he's sort of sitting there waiting to see how it all pans out. And he's actually got half a chance here. They're almost going to go 3 wide. Sam Dunstall defending down the inside. For most of the race, he's been thinking about taking the lead from Johnny, but now he's having to think about defending that second place from Brenton Hobson. Johnny's loving this because it gives him a little bit of a break. But having said that, when they get to the braking zone, they catch straight back up again.
Absolutely, and same thing's happening to Lewis Wedding, unfortunately, behind. Brendan Foley fortunately, he's not really in the front pack, and he's not stuck back with Devonish and Lewis, so he's sort of got a bit of clear air just to worry about his own race.
Oh, well, how long did it take us? Half an hour into the stream.
That's better than I've usually done.
Well
Lewis, as I was saying before and then interrupted myself, track cuts may be an issue. I've seen Lewis taking a couple of...
Hobson's close here. Sam Dunstall once more is defending
on the inside into Tamburello. He's going to have it done, I think, on Devonish.
He's backing out of it, but Devonish is going deep there. He tried to brake far too late, and Will Devonish finally gives up that position to Lewis Wedding. Lewis Wedding up into 5th place, and how much time? He's got only 7 laps to go to try and bridge that gap to Foley, who again is having a lonely race. He's starting to drop off the back of the lead battle, which is still as it was, as we see Sam Dunstall wiggling the tail out of Tosa, and Hobson's got the lights flashing. I don't know if he's angry or if he's just trying to distract his fellow racers at the moment, but he's starting to get impatient by the looks of it. He was just sort of sitting back there and waiting for things to happen in the early parts of this race, but now it looks like he wants to get by and fast.
Absolutely. And for a third time, before I interrupt myself again, track cuts may be an issue. I've seen a few drivers taking quite some liberties with the line, especially out of Agua Minerale and through the Variante Alta. So it's going to be interesting to see if anyone gets a penalty for that. Everyone is aware how many chances they get, but
That's
still, it's a track where it's quite easy to just carry a little bit too much speed into a corner, go a bit wide, and if you don't lift enough that the game... As Sam nearly hits the back of Johnny. God, Sam is all over the back of this car.
He really is.
Good Lord.
To add on to that point about track cuts, and Lewis Wedding has got by Foley. I think Foley's made a mistake because that was a long a lot of positions to make up very quickly. We're going to have a look at Brenton Foley locking up into Ravazza 1 and off into the gravel, and that's how he gave up that position to Lewis Wedding. So Brenton Foley, who has been having pretty strong run, a bit of a gift there to Lewis Wedding.
Absolutely. Sam has had a scruffy Tamburello. Hobson is all over the back of him. Johnny's gotten a few car lengths out front. Hobson just braking a little bit earlier, being cautious, taking a nice line through Villeneuve. He's going to have a go into Tosa, I reckon, but Sam's covering it off. Oh, Hobbs goes going.
That might have been two moves there. Sam Dunstall looked like he was about to defend, then he went to the outside, and Brenton Hobson went for the inside, and I guess Dunstall will argue that he was turning in for the corner, as Will Devonish has caught Brenton Foley after that incident now. Lewis Wedding is a good 5 seconds off this pack, but they're all... The fact that Brenton Hobson and Sam Dunstall are fighting so... there's such a hard-fought battle over second place is just giving Johnny a little bit of a break at this stage of the race.
Hobson has got a bit of a run here on Sam going down through. It'll be a very brave man to overtake into the chicane. He's going to get it done. Hobson goes, he goes very, very deep. I don't know if he's
going to be a switchback for Sam Dunstall, and he doesn't get the drive off the exit of the corner. As you said, I think he had to take a bit more curb than he ideally would have liked to, but Sam Dunstall, a clever over-under move there, and he just got the move. He just got the move done and got the drive on the exit of the corner and got the position back.
Absolutely. I feel like Hobson took a probably not an acceptable line through the Variante Alta, so he very possibly would have handed the position back.
He may have got a corner cut. Well, I mean, you were talking about corner cuts. Just to add on to that, I know at Piratella the track lets you go very wide, and that's the line we've seen a lot of these guys taking through that corner, well wide of the white lines, but nonetheless the circuit lets you do it.
But Sam is taking the life out of his tyres, something shocking. He's
well,
blocking up going to Tamburello, and Hobson's got a run on him down towards Villeneuve. Unfortunately,
no way through there.
The worst part of the track to try to overtake.
I think Hobson's a lot stronger on the exit of Tosa. It is a really, really tricky corner, and the most defensive line you've ever seen. Brenton Hobson's going to drive around the outside at Tosa, but he gets a little bit of wiggle on the exit, and that is just the thing that Sam Dunstall needed, because he had just enough traction to get his nose ahead, and now he's starting to pull away as they go down to Piratella, and Brenton Hobson's so much stronger under brakes. He closed through the braking zone of Piratella, and he's going to drive around the outside at Aqua Minerale here. They're going to go side by side, but it's going to be the high ground there for Brenton Hobson, Sam Dunstall's kept the inside, and the drive has Brenton Hobson ahead, but he's got to get it stopped, and Sam Dunstall is not going away. This is one of the hardest moves that Brenton Hobson has ever had to do. I think he's got the job done. They've both gone very well wide off the track at the Variante Alta there, but I think for now Brenton Hobson has that job done. But all of this has caused Johnny to skip away to a 2.7 second lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So Johnny's just walking away with it at the front, although Hobson is now going to set about eating into that lead with the 5 laps he has remaining.
Well, we're going to see his real pace now.
Absolutely. I think Sam and Brenton Hobson both did some fairly hefty accelerating whilst all 4 wheels were off the track, but I think they both sort of did it, so it's probably a zero-sum.
Yes. If anyone watched Monaco with Sainz and Verstappen, it was kind of like that, you know. It's like, well, you kind of both did it a bit, and Brenton Hobson had a massive moment on the curb there. He's dropped. He hasn't dropped really much time to Johnny, but Brenton, it just keeps Dunstall in the fight. Off screen, we haven't seen what happened to him, but Brenton Foley has lost further 2 positions after that incident. Well, not incident, but he went off at Ravazza and let Lewis Wedding through. He's since let Devonish and Phillip both through, and more problems for Brenton Hobson. Brenton Hobson has taken the life out of his tyres trying to get past Sam Dunstall, and now the tables have completely turned. And all while they're having these issues, they're still catching Johnny, because Johnny's only 2.5 seconds off the road. They've taken 2/10 out of him on this lap.
Absolutely. So these two apparently are inseparable on the track, although Dunstall is just... I don't understand how... We've got a driver in our league called Sam Smith who slides through every single corner, and I can just see the car spinning at every possible opportunity, but he somehow manages to hold on to it. That seems to be Sam Dunstall's... It must be something to do with Sam's. It's just their driving style. He's sliding through every corner, and I'm always expecting him to lose it. But he's still maintaining. He's lost a bit of time to Hobson, but he's within a shout. And like, if I was driving like that, I'd be in the wall.
Well, on this lap, they've taken 0.7 of a second out of Johnny. So while they're making mistakes and burning their tyres up, Johnny, who we mentioned burned his tyres up in Phillip Island, is, I mean, he's never been in this position. He's not won an Automobilista Australia race before. On the last lap, he did a 46.4, and Brenton Hobson did a 45.8, so he definitely isn't as fast as Brenton Hobson. He would know that, you know, the name precedes him. Can he hang on for the remaining 3 laps of this race?
Absolutely, it's incredible pressure when you're out the front like that. You're the pathfinder, as it was, like as they're lapping Brenton Ross by the looks of it, and
Brenton
you don't
Ross
have a
looks like he's got a
yardstick in
problem.
front of you. Yeah, you don't have a yardstick in front of you. You gotta spot your own breaking point with your deteriorating tires, and just the weight of a possible win on your shoulders it's something that a lot of people struggle to deal with, and currently I'd say he's dealing with it fairly admirably. He might want to pick up his pace a tiny bit, but there are only 3 laps left in the race, and we've seen how difficult it's been for cars to make a move around this track.
That's
unless
true.
The driver makes an accident. So.
Well, he just has to keep it on the road, I think, and if he defends, having said that, Brenton Hobson is a master overtaker, and he's definitely going to be going for that win. He doesn't want to win the championship with a 2nd place. He wants to win it with a 1st place finish. Incidentally, Lewis Wedding, as it is his 4th, so even if Hobson were to win the race, he wouldn't wrap up the title in this race. But we'll just do a quick update on everyone else. Brenton Foley's got back ahead of Phillip Oak. Those two are inseparable in these races. They're basically, I'd like to say they are rivals, and currently a second apart on track. We're not looking at them right now because the battle for the lead is closing up, all the while Lewis Wedding is closing up as well. And we've had a few DNFs. Dwayne Davies has not finished. Brock Harvey is out of the race, and Brian Walsh earlier on as well.
Absolutely, and Brenton Ross and Robert Dunt, by the looks of it, with issues, as well as Topher, as we discussed earlier in the race in the first couple of laps, all laps down on the leading cars. So, not I don't even know what the words I'm trying to find are, but anyways, Matt Williams doing decent job down in 8th, just. You know, decent points.
And Sam Dunstall's gone wide at Villeneuve, and that's going to put him under pressure from Lewis Wedding. I was just looking at the gap to the lead, which has completely been eradicated in the last sector. I was going to tell you what the last lap of Brenton Hobson was, but he got a track cut in the previous lap, so we don't know what it was, but he has been in the 45s, and Johnny's last lap was a 46.6, but Brenton Hobson's now all over the gearbox of Johnny, so Johnny's going to have to defend like his life depends on it if he's going to win this race.
Absolutely, and as you say, Lewis now within a second of Sam Dunstall. So we're going to have a hard battle, I reckon, for the last 2 laps for 3rd position and for 1st position.
Oh, I thought Brenton Hobson was going to go down the inside at the Variante Alta there, but and Johnny left the door wide open, but I think he's going to have him down at Ravazza here. He's got a tremendous run out of the chicane, and Johnny's going to have to be absolutely on the inside. Just feel like Brenton Hobson's so much closer on the brakes, but
Johnny's in the gravel.
Yeah, he is in the gravel. He just saw Brenton Hobson get big in his mirrors, and he's given the position to Brenton Hobson. So the battle for the lead was a short one, and there was someone in the background being lapped, getting out of the way there for Sam Dunstall and Lewis Wedding. I think this might be game, set, and match for Johnny. Brenton Hobson in the lead of this race, but Lewis Wedding all over the back of Sam Dunstall, and we saw how vigorously he defended the lead. How vigorously will he defend 3rd place?
Absolutely. Looks like Lewis is going to have the ins. Oh, there's a bit of touch, bit of bump.
Bit of door-to-door. It's all right. It's kosher, and Lewis Wedding's through, and that was a pretty textbook move from Lewis Wedding.
Johnny never actually, considering his accident, is all over the back of Hobson heading through Villeneuve. He's going to have a go into Tosa, I reckon, if he's
woken up.
Clean it up.
He's woken up.
He's lost time coming out of Villeneuve. He got a little bit hairy coming out of it, but
I wonder if Brenton Hobson just made a mistake actually on the previous corner, which allowed Johnny back into it.
Johnny was only a few tenths down on Hobson coming down the start-finish straight, so I think he got a decent run coming out of the Ravazzas, even though he was coming off gravel. He wasn't very far behind him. I was going to say something, but then I was distracted by Lewis and and Sam, as that's got to be a cut, surely, for Johnny going through Agua Minerale with all 4 wheels off the track and his foot flat to the floor.
Well,
But
we'll find
nevertheless,
out. We're looking for the sector times, and we haven't seen one for Johnny, so you may be right that was a cut. So he was keeping with Brenton Hobson, but Brenton Hobson just stretching away a little bit as we enter the final part of the lap on what is the penultimate lap, and just one more after this. And Lewis Wedding doesn't look like he's going to have enough to catch up to Johnny on this lap. So Johnny, if he keeps it clean, is going to have a sensational podium. He'll be disappointed he didn't win after leading for so long, but and so will Lewis Wedding be disappointed that Johnny couldn't take a few points off Hobbo.
Absolutely, but it was an incredible effort from Johnny to get that time in qualifying, and then he did what he had to do. He kept his head down and motored away while everyone was squabbling behind him. But as soon as Hobson got into some clear air, he just took huge chomping bites out of that lead and closed down on him in an incredible pace. He caught him within a lap, I think, of overtaking Sam Dunstall.
Yeah, we didn't even have a chance to sort of see or calculate on the timing screen how quickly the gap would come down, because it happened in one sector, and such is the advantage that Hobson has. I just have a feeling that Johnny is a driver who eats his tyres a little bit, and I frankly thought Brenton Hobson had rooted his tyres, given the amount of sliding we were having. But it's been a masterclass for Brenton Hobson. He was very patient, it has to be said. When the opportunities, it looked like he was getting a bit hot under the collar when he couldn't get past Sam, and then he didn't spend too much time behind Johnny, but he was just patient, and the race came to him.
Absolutely, and Lewis Wedding getting up into 3rd place from his 6th place finish, of 6th place qualifying position, is a decent result for him. So he's definitely carrying it on to the next race. He probably would have preferred for Hobbo to be in the wall in flames. But
well, take nothing away from this man. He's coming across the line to win race 1 of the Imola round 9 race, and 1 to go obviously. But Brenton Hobson now back on a streak because he won race 2 in Phillip Island. He's your race winner here in Imola for race 1.
Absolutely. So we look with bated breath towards the second race and see what Lewis can do to curb Hobson's inexorable advance. Do they qualify again? They
certainly do. Yes, they do a brand new qualifying session, 15 minutes. So Lewis Wedding will have the chance to potentially improve his starting position from where he started in the first race. We know that based on his race pace that he's better than where he started in the first race, and he was actually he set a 45.5 was his fastest lap of the race, and that was only a 10th off of Brenton Hobson's fastest lap of the race.
Absolutely. So he's got the pace to live with Hobson. He just needs to do it when it counts and pick himself up in a decent position. As he overtakes Johnny and then and Hobson going through Agua Minerale on the cool down lap, flashing his lights, maybe just letting Hobson know, mate, it's not over.
Well, yes, and I don't know if he's done the maths himself. I know he is a driver who likes to prepare, but he obviously would like to keep it going. I mean, he probably in his heart of hearts would know that it's not something that he's going to be able to stop, like, the tides, but he'll try his level best. He'll get an excavator if he needs to, push the sea back. But as I regret making that particularly daft metaphor. But anyway, Brenton Hobson wins the race from Johnny. Lewis Wedding in 3rd place. Sam Dunstall, after quite a good start, remained ahead of Brenton Hobson for quite some time. He ends up 4th, but only 5 seconds adrift. Will Devonish was 5th for an improvement in his fortunes. He has had a few races where he wasn't quite on the pace. Brenton Foley, after an early race mistake, recovered to 6th place to finish ahead of Philip Boak. That was a particularly close-ish, 2 seconds between them, so that would have been a hard-fought battle to the end. Matt Williams finishes in 8th place. Gary Neville in 9th for a Pro-Am victory. I believe Gary Neville is Pro-Am, so that will be his first victory in Pro-Am. Many congratulations to him. Escudero 10th, which would be 2nd place in Pro-Am for himself, and Cameron Rutledge rounding out the Pro-Am podium in 3rd place, followed by Luke, Rob Dunt, and DNFers Topher Keane. Brendan Ross was 2 laps down behind the 2 DNFers of Topher and Keane. Dwayne Davies in 17th, Brock Harvey 18th, having not finished either, and Brian Walsh 19th.
Absolutely, well called there, Stairs. So, we got a bit of time before qualifying, do we?
Well, it'll roll over pretty quickly. It always does. Well, we've got a bit of people. We've had a bunch of people from that race join us in the commentary box. So we might as well talk to our race winner, Brenton Hobson. It looked like a patient race for you there. You didn't quite get the best start. It wasn't the worst. You lost the position to Sam on the start. And it's a difficult place to pass. So you had quite a few laps to get the job done and catch Johnny at the end.
Yeah, I had to be very patient. Actually, I was a little surprised when off the line I thought I got a good launch, and then thought I was going to be side by side down into one, and then I forget who it was, moved over right in front of me. It took me for a second, and then by the time I got my thoughts about it all, we were already off and gone, and that was it. We were third. So definitely had to be very patient. I nearly got out the punt bumper on the front of the Porsche there after a little while, after 2 or 3 big dedicated moves to go for the pass, only to get blocked. I was ready.
Yeah, well, we saw you flashing the lights. Were you getting a bit frustrated at certain points, or?
I was, because I felt like I was faster, but it is racing's racing. I think the one that got me was down into turn, I don't know, 6-ish, whatever it is, the hairpin up there. Went to the inside, sort of, and he moved to the inside to block. So I went to the outside, and then he moved back to the outside. So I went to the inside, and then he moved back. What is going on? But
yeah, we saw that. I think I called that in the commentary box. It seemed like it was a bit of a double move.
Yes.
But that's all right. It is what it is, and I had to work for it. That's for sure. And it was a good fun battle. It was great to race against a couple of people that I haven't really spent that much time door to door with. So no, it was really good and a really enjoyable race. But frustrations were mounting there about 5 laps in, when I just wanted to get through, and just in the end had to sort of force the issue a bit. I was trying around the outside and all sorts of weird stuff, but I really couldn't do much else. But no, in the end we got through. I didn't think for a second we'd get to the front, but I guess maybe Johnny sort of got a bit flustered or something, saw that I got through and was coming, or what it was, because his pace is actually quite good. But either way, I was surprised to catch him, and then just sort of, I guess, boxed him into a bit of a mistake, just pressure, because it was going to be hard to get through. So got lucky, I think, in the end, but we take them however we get them.
Well, certainly agree with you there, and congratulations on a hard-fought victory. Incidentally, I know you're not thinking too much about the championship, but it puts you in a pretty strong position for race 2 in terms of being able to wrap it up tonight. I believe you'd have to cough up 17 points out of a possible 20 to lose the championship tonight. And when I say lose, I mean it would still be quite possible that you'd wrap it up next week. But it's looking like you may well be the very first Automobilista Australia champion tonight.
That's cool. I'm really, like I said, not really thinking too much about it. I know it's there, and it was a mathematical chance. The way that you just explained that to me made my head hurt. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I realised I described it in the worst possible way, but I'm sure that our listeners will get a more coherent explanation in the laps ahead as we go into race 2.
Well, I think you're either trying to say I need to finish sort of 3rd-ish, or I need to finish better than like 16th or something. But anyway, I'll wait and see, and you can tell me after the next race how it went.
Yeah, I think what it boils down to is, regardless of what Lewis does, you need to score 3 points. I think that would be pretty hard not to do, considering I think there aren't actually that many people in the race because of the split between Pro AB and Pro Am. But nonetheless, I'll stop filling your head with confusing mathematical possibilities and let you get on and think about what you're going to do in race 2.
No worries. I don't need anything else going on in my head. I'm a driver.
Fair enough. We know that you race for wins, and we appreciate that. Lewis Wedding, you didn't have the best start, and you had to fight for that podium, but it was sort of made difficult by a difficult qualifying session.
Yeah, obviously I come in a bit underdone. A bit like Phillip Island, but a lot worse. It got even less running here. Obviously, in qualifying, I actually started to get a little bit of a sense of how to drive the car around this track, and on my hottest lap, which would have put me on the front row, coming out of, I think it's Variante Alta, took the same line on the exit as always, and this time got pinged for a track cut. So that, and then on my previous lap, which would have put me up another couple of spots, a lap or two beforehand, got blocked and had an accident. So.
We saw that.
Yeah, well, we saw the block. We saw someone braking right in front of you, which I mean,
it wasn't ideal, but yeah, got on. Obviously, in the race, had an okay start. Didn't lose the position. There was no contact or anything like that, and then just tried to find my way in the race. And Will was, he was very aggressive in his defence. There was one time coming out of the chicane, I was pretty much. My bumper was, or my nose was at his bumper, and he chopped me. So eventually got past him, and then I saw the gap in front of me to those three guys in front sort of slowly dwindled down, and at this point I was wondering, I was just like, if I hadn't stuffed that qualifying, where would I be? But obviously closed the gap down, and Sam made a mistake, and I got right behind him eventually, and got around the outside of him at the first chicane somehow, and brought it home in third place, which is after where I started, and what happened at the start of the race and stuff, with the gaps sort of slowly getting bigger, as I thought it was a pretty good race from, in perspective.
I'd agree. A very good recovery effort, and obviously, and I called it in the box, a textbook overtake. But speaking of qualifying, I don't want to compromise your effort in race 2, because we're about a minute and a half into the second qualifying session, so we better let you get back in there and set the world on fire.
Still plenty of time, mate.
Well, we do know that you're one who likes to wait in the pit box for a while during qualifying. Bit of a strategy?
It's not so much strategy. Everybody, if you take notice of sessions, everybody wants to, queue up in the pits. There's no point going out straight away. You just wait until everybody does a lap and presses escape, and then you go out. So
Did notice that you set a lap that was good enough for 6th in qualifying. First lap out in warm-up, you set a lap which would have been good enough for 2nd. I imagine that was a tad frustrating, if you were even cognizant of that at the time.
Well, I just wanted to see if I could replicate the lap I was going to do in the warm-up, what I was going to do in qualifying before I got the track cut. So I even lost a bit of time. So if I can put all my sectors together, hopefully I can put it on the front row, and we'll see what happens from there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a big fan, Lewis. I want an autographed something or other. But
I was thinking, what would you like autographed, mate? I'll send some your way.
A piece of toilet paper. Don't go too crazy.
Steel Series panties.
There you go.
I don't know if they exist, but we could make it happen. We need some Lewis Wedding merchandise.
We'll see. If I can't find any Steel Series ones, I'll find some Logitech ones and send it your way.
There we go. I love it.
There we go.
We need some posters that say it's a nice day for a Lewis Wedding.
I'm sure he's heard them all at this stage, but best of luck, Lewis, for the second race, and, give him hell.
Yeah, get out there, mate.
Hopefully you got another great race coming up as well.
We hope so. We certainly do. Brenton Hobson's got the headlights on because he is on a fast lap at the moment. We've got purple sectors at the moment from Will Devonish and Brenton Hobson. Brenton Hobson actually hasn't set his middle sector. Now he has, and it's purple. So he's setting the early pace, if that wasn't a track cut, at the Variante Alta, which is something that I very much enjoy saying. Heading down
it is
to...
pleasing.
It is pleasing. The corner names at Imola just give me immense pleasure. I'm glad that we're leaving behind some of the... No disrespect to Australian circuits, but some of them are a little bit uninspiring. when you keep going to them day in, day out. So I'm glad that we're branching out into some European circuits, and I hope to see some American circuits soon as well with a lot of elevation. And Brenton Hobson to the top of the tree with a 46.1. I don't think that'll be good enough for pole position in this qualifying session, but it's his first benchmark.
Absolutely. 45.1, I believe, was the quali time set by Johnny in the first session, so leaving about a second on the table there. Heavens to Murgatroyd, so leaving about a second on the table there as Hobson, but it was just his first hot lap, so let's
Will Devonish has gone faster in the first sector than Brenton Hobson did on that previous lap. You've seen something?
Hobson's not going to improve, sorry, on his lap. He's gone very, very wide. Very
wide. Well, let's have a look at what Will Devonish... Sorry, we'll have a look at what Will Devonish does in the middle sector. He's coming through the mineral water corner right now and up the hill. Very important corner, that, because if you lose any momentum, it's compounded by the fact that you're going uphill, but he's done it quite nicely. He's going to improve on his PB by some 4/10, and he's up by 2/10 on the time Brenton Hobson set the last time around.
Absolutely. So Devonish pulling out all the stops he can, trying to get up into a better position, although I imagine Lewis will be doing exactly the same thing once he gets out on track. Is he out on track yet? He is.
He is, but
he's on his
as we said, I mean, there's still. I mean, we're a third of the way into the session already. It goes quick, but as he said to us, you know, I was a bit worried that we might be keeping him and preventing, you know, not giving him the best opportunity he could possibly have to set the fastest lap by interviewing him. Yeah, sorry. As that happened, Will Devonish did go to the top of the tree with a 45.9. First of our men into the 45s in this session. And won't be on this lap.
No, absolutely not. Not a particularly good line through Tamburello.
I feel like he knew very well that was the case. Brenton Hobson's just started a lap, incidentally. He's going through Tamburello at the moment, and I think he might have backed out of it. Indeed, he has. So nothing doing for Brenton Hobson. Sam Dunstall also on a lap. What's he going to do? He's just coming up to Aqua Minerale. I love this track. I can identify the corner straight away. Anyone who watched the broadcast last week would remember me mistaking the Hayshed for turn 3 at Phillip Island. I love Phillip Island, but just that version of the track, a lot of the cameras
tracks look samey.
They do, and this track, every corner is distinctive. You know where you are, no matter what you're looking at. On this circuit, but nonetheless, Sam Dunstall's coming down to the Ravazza, locks the inside front, won't cost him too much time, taking a fair bit of curb on Ravazza 2, a little bit of gravel I think. That'll probably just hamper his progress down the main straight just a little bit. I don't think it's going to be quick enough for pole position. Is it even going to be... Oh, I think he got a track cut. He did. He got a track cut somewhere along the line. So Sam Dunstall will try again.
Absolutely. So I'm amazed no one got a penalty during the race from track cuts, because they seem to be fairly prevalent in terms of robbing people of their lap times. But
they do.
Currently, Sam in 4th position, just behind Johnny, as he's definitely not going to improve on this
he's gone
lap
off there.
as he
So
goes into the
frustration,
wall.
I think. And speaking of frustration, Johnny will be happy with 2nd place. I should think I'd be happy with 2nd place. But there's a difference between lucking into 2nd place like I did a couple of weeks ago in the GT3 race at Suzuka, and losing 2nd place at the death, or losing 1st place to finish 2nd at the death like he did in that previous race. And will that be demoralising enough to kill his spirit? Was that lap in the qualifying session for race 1 just a flash in the pan, or does he have genuine pace?
Oh, sorry, Lewis. Lewis was leaving his pit garage and got smacked into by Daniel Escudero.
Oh dear, those two are inseparable tonight. And Johnny
fairness,
does indeed go to the top with a 45.7.
In fairness, I believe that was more Lewis's bad than Daniel's. He tore out of his pit garage as Daniel was already trundling down the pit lane. But
Daniel wasn't speeding down the pit lane or anything like that. It was just Lewis came straight out of the... Yeah.
So Lewis currently 5th on his with his lap, only 600ths behind Sam, and within half a second of Devonish and Hobson. So he's got his eye on a front row, I reckon. Lewis Wedding does.
Absolutely.
What time did Johnny set? A 45.7, which is still
and he's up on it
6
again. He's up on it again by a tenth or so. So there's a potential that Johnny could go faster still. And Will Devonish, it has to be said, doing a good job there, up in second place at the moment.
Absolutely, and like that time Johnny's set, he's at the top of the table, but it's still 6/10 slower than the time he set in the previous qualifying session. So there's obviously still time to be found. He's just got to, you know, scrounge around under the sofa cushions and find it.
And Johnny did have traffic, but it was Sam Dunstall, and wise to the fact, Sam Dunstall jumped out of the way on the approach to the Variante Alta, and Johnny did lose a tenth or two in the middle sector, so not something he'll be terribly pleased about, but he's still in with a shot if he nails the final sector.
Absolutely, Lewis just cutting the Variante Alta, but I believe this is an outlap, so wouldn't be concerning him too much. 7/10 he has to make up, which seems like a tall order, but when you're when you're 2 seconds off of the fastest pace, as Brenton Hobson, never mind. Excuse my friend.
Johnny shaves half a tenth off of his best lap, but Brenton Hobson has surpassed it before he even crossed the line. So Johnny improves, but is relegated to second, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Then Lewis starting his next hot lap, so we watch his sectors with great interest.
Oh, and speaking of watching someone's career with great interest, Brenton Hobson has taken half a tenth off of his first sector, so he's going quicker still. So Lewis Wedding and Brenton Hobson both on the move.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for recognising my reference.
Oh, almost immediately.
Lewis 6,000ths down on P1 at the moment, so he's on a mission. If he manages to hold this lap together, he is going to be
6,000ths. But Brenton Hobson, we're waiting for his middle sector time as he comes up Aqua Minerale, out of the second part of Aqua Minerale. We're going to see whether he has the high ground, and we haven't actually got a sector time there. I wonder if he got a corner cut. I think Brenton Hobson got a corner cut on that lap, so nothing doing for Brenton Hobson. Let's rejoin, or join for the first time, Lewis Wedding in this qualifying session, and up by a second on his PB, and on pole position, there's nothing in it, Mad Bird. 800ths of a second.
Absolutely, you can make that up with like by braking a split second later than you usually do, and just managing to pull the car up.
That's the tough bit. Pulling the car up. Anyone can brake a split second later, but pulling the car up, he takes a lot of curb, all four wheels on the inside there.
I noticed he did that a lot during the race, so that's potentially his. There's some very interesting racing lines, it must be said, considering how close these guys are. They've got such varying lines through a lot of the corners.
Can he do it?
Coming up.
He's done it by 1/100th of a second. Lewis Wedding is in provisional pole, and Brenton Hobson, on a lap at the moment, has to answer because there's only 3 minutes left in this session.
Yeah, absolutely. Never mind the Steel Series panties. I want the jockey he's wearing right now. I want them off at the end of this race, and I want him signed. Well, let's wait and see if he wins, obviously. But
oh, that's a bit suspect, I think. But Brenton Hobson is half a tenth up still, so this is two prize fighters fighting it out. You know, punch and counter punch. Brenton Hobson, sector by sector. Who is going to be on pole position? Is it Lewis Wedding? Is it Brenton Hobson? We don't know.
Lewis another 200ths up on his best time, so he's still got time to find. Hobson we know has time to find, so is Hobson out on a hot lap currently?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's half a tenth up. He's currently on a lap. Goodness. He may well beat it. He's up by half a tenth on his lap, but Lewis Wedding was mega through the middle sector, and he's down by 300ths of a second. Brenton Hobson has to absolutely nail this final sector.
As Lewis Wedding looks like he is actually down by almost half a tenth on his own first sector, second sector, as he takes a very rough ride across the Variante Alta, heading on down towards the Ravazzas. He might get traffic, but it should keep out of his way.
Brenton Hobson's not as aggressive at Ravazza 1 as Lewis Wedding is, so is he able to carry more speed through there? The answer will be on the timing screen in a couple of seconds' time for you, my viewers. Let's have a look. What's the time? He's taken 3/10 of a second out of Lewis Wedding. He is in pole position. Does Lewis Wedding have an answer?
Lewis is getting a slight toe from Brian Walsh down the start-finish straight, but I don't think he does. No, he doesn't.
He improved,
cuts
though.
it in half, but not enough.
And both... Well, Lewis Wedding's gone back to the pits. Brenton Hobson is on a lap. Is it a fast lap or not? Because Lewis Wedding is not going to get another lap in because there's a minute left in this session, and given the long lap here, some 1 minute 45, if you're quick...
Brenton 2/10 up on in his first sector.
Alright, now the game is different. Brenton Hobson has pole. Can he get a 144? That is the question.
Absolutely. We've still got Johnny out on track, and Will Devonish and Philip Boak, third, fourth and fifth places, still to set their final lap time. So there is a potential that they could jump Lewis, since Lewis is unable to improve, but it would take an almighty lap from any of them, I would imagine. And Brenton Foley relegated down to the 6th position after his amazing work in the half a second.
My goodness.
Lord.
Well, the question is no longer whether he can get a 144. The question is whether he can get a 44.5, which seems pretty damn likely at this stage. How much lower can Brenton Hobson lower the bar? He's going to obliterate his competition here in this qualifying session. He's already got pole position. This is just having a laugh right now, and this is the way to win a championship. If you were ever going to think of the best way to possibly do it, is to trounce your opposition in qualifying. It's to trounce your competition in the race. He's halfway there. He's got a 144.5 point. Look at that for symmetry. 144.544 beats his own pole time by 0.544. That is incredibly satisfying. And that little
with an incredible 360 slide heading into Tamburello, and catches it and continues on his lap, which probably is still 4 seconds faster than some of the runners out there.
Madbird, I am delirious with happiness.
As a Lewis Wedding fan girl, I won't confess to the same emotions, but I must say what a time for him to pull it out. The very last hot lap of the last qualifying session of potentially the last qualifying session of him not being a certainty for the championship.
Well, speaking of pulling it out at the last minute, Brenton Foley ended up... Well, yeah, no, I wasn't talking about what you were potentially thinking about in your mind when you did that little laugh. But Brenton Foley, incidentally, will be starting on the second row of the grid. He had an excellent qualifying session. We apologise because we got so wrapped up in the battle for pole, we didn't even mention that he surpassed Johnny for third position. So Brenton Foley looking strong again. And Sam Dunstall up from 7th place. We weren't even looking at him. I thought, nah, 7th, he's had a shocker. No, he hasn't. He's jumped up into 3rd at the death by 0.5 of a second over Brenton Foley. So well done, Sam Dunstall. He gives himself half a chance. And we saw he was a fast starter in race 1. So
absolutely,
that's the end of that qualifying session. It gives us a chance to take a breath, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So it'll be very interesting to see what sort of start Lewis can get. I mean, even if he takes the lead from Hobson at the start of the race and leads the race all the way through to the end, I don't think it's possible for him not to lose, for Hobson not to confirm the championship in this race.
Yeah.
Unless he spears off into a wall, explodes his car, and comes home in 20th. And even then, is that a mathematical possibility?
Well, we'll go over the details of that after the break, but we do need a quick trademarked piss break, and we'll be right back at the conclusion of aforementioned break. Don't go anywhere because we're going to crown a champion pretty soon, I think.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. We come up the inside. McLaughlin gets it to They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off.
Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Welcome back, everybody. We're 3 minutes remaining in the practice session, and there's a very good chance that we may, at the end of this session, begin a race that crowns our very first Automobilista Australia champion.
Is this a short shift production or Apex Rear Wing?
I think it's.
Excuse me.
It is
Just,
Mad Bird?
Sorry, yeah, I do apologise. I think my window's open and you can hear the plebs next door. I think it's going to be an interesting race, regardless of the result, because we've got two amazing races on the front row. We've got Lewis alongside Hobson, who, in the V8s, which I commentate with you, Stairs, as well as in this one race that I've commentated with you, they've been in a class of their own. Historically, not in the previous race. I'm not doing well with my words here, but in the V8s anyway, Hobson and Lewis, in my experience, have been the main rivalry. When I think of AMS Australia, I think of Lewis versus Hobson. So even if Lewis does not manage to carry on the championship fight to the next race, it's going to be a race to remember, I believe, Stairs.
Well, I mean, effectively, if Brenton Hobson starts the race, I haven't done the maths on how many Pro AB runners there are, but effectively, he only needs 3 points, as far as I'm concerned, to win the championship, because with that win, he holds a 97-point advantage over Lewis Wedding, and if Lewis Wedding were to win the race, then if Lewis... Sorry, let me start that sentence again. If Lewis Wedding were to win that race and Brenton Hobson got 3 points, then the gap would be 80 points. And Lewis Wedding would only be able to accrue as many points if he won the remaining 4 races as Brenton Hobson already had. And then there would go to a count back in which Brenton Hobson would win the championship.
Absolutely.
So effectively, he's... Basically, all he has to do is start the race and not make a mistake somewhere.
I noticed we've got a new runner called Matt Devine, who is in a very, very attractive Porsche. It appears to be Nikon branded, and it's a very obvious maroon.
I think that's your car, Mad Bird.
That is my car. Oh my goodness! It has my name on the window, and he's spun it out. Don't break
how does
my
it,
car,
how does it feel? It's kind of like watching someone else with your girlfriend, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either when I've seen it. So,
you have?
No.
Oh.
What? Anyway, I'm not a fan of that at all. So I'm hoping he doesn't, spin it out in Villeneuve like he just did, and treats my car with the respect that it deserves. As Rob Dunt flings his into a wall, so obviously not something he's concerned about.
Well, Rob Dunt's no slouch. He's won the 6 hours.
He did indeed, him and Sam Smith.
But and Philip Boak, speaking of people who are no slouches, who dominated the Pro-Am series, probably to a point that probably didn't, to his detriment, because it forced him to get what's the term? Promoted's the term I'm looking for. Promoted to Pro B, and now he's no longer contesting the championship that he was winning by quite some margin. And
that's an awkward situation to be in.
It is, but I mean, I suppose that's a good situation in some ways. But
I mean, would you rather a championship win in a lower grade, or would you rather
absolutely
be competing in a higher grade?
Oh, mate, I'd celebrate till the cows came home if I beat a bunch of kindy kids. But that's really inconsequential now, because we're about to grid up, and we've got 2 cars up on the grids already. I believe that's Brendan Ross and David Keane. There's Brenton Foley's plumbing car. I will get it. Laser plumbing and electrical. Beg your pardon, Brock Harvey. I think you ought to get into the other channel.
He wants to listen, and why not?
He does. No, he likes to flash the lights when we say his name. So we're well done. What's the term?
Oh my God.
Good luck is the term we're looking for in the next race. Jesus, I'm not doing well tonight.
Congratulations on racing. Hopefully you do.
What's the term for something when you're about to No, good luck. That's the term. Nah. Well, we've got a full grid.
Glory.
We've got a full grid. No, it's time for professionalism. And
yeah, as you say that, Phil Boak nearly rear-ended Johnny because Johnny just did not move off the line.
and Brenton Foley, as is customary for him, was a bit tardy off the line. Lewis Wedding, as always, on it, apart from the time he had to go and get donuts for his missus. But Brenton Hobson is pole position. I don't know if you know that story, Madbird, do you?
No, I'm not aware of that story.
In Barbagallo a couple of weeks ago, we wondered what happened to Lewis Wedding. He was in the practice session. He was setting fast times. He didn't come out in qualifying. We thought, oh, there must be something wrong with this steering wheel. About halfway through the race, he rocks up, about 15 laps down. And we said in the interview, what happened? And he said, someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, let's go get donuts. And he didn't make it back for the start of the race.
It's certainly a man that has his priorities in order, I guess.
Well, obviously this is a person who means a lot to Lewis Wedding, and it says a lot about Lewis Wedding as a man. But
it does.
Having said that, we're halfway around the lap. Madbird, do you want to take us through the grid for race 2 of Imola?
Absolutely. So we've got Brenton Hobson in the drive go-karting car, very possibly closing out the championship for the Super Series. Got Lewis Wedding, his main rival, behind him in the Mountain Dew car. Sam Dunstall, in very good in first race until a few mistakes later in the race, coming down in third. Brenton Foley in fourth, decent results for him since he's been promoted. Johnny with an incredible qualifying lap and decent race pace last race, not quite making it fifth on the grid. Will Devonish also technically in mathematical contention, but really not really. Will Devonish down in sixth place. Philip Boak, as you say, very good in the Pro-Am runners, down in seventh. Topher behind him. I think the top qualifying of the current Pro-Am runners in 8th position. Rob Dunt 9th. Dwayne Davies in 10th. Brock Harvey, our old chief, flashing his lights. See, here's me in the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune Short Shift podcast. Stop hitting me car down in 11th. Gary Neville in GNev Racing in 12th with that Firestone Verizon Someone Likes IndyCar livery. David Keane in the Keno Racing, flashing his brake lights. Very good.
I don't think he can hear us though. That's just coincidental.
He's just doing it. We've got Matt Williams, El Chief in the KMAD, 14th. Brendan Ross in 15th, hopefully makes it through the first lap without any issues. Luke in the hideous guest car, 16th. Matt Devine in a fantastic Norwegian-inspired Nikon livery there, 17th. Daniel Escudero, hopefully no issues in this race, 18th. Cam Rutledge, 19th. Brian Walsh in the Bob Jane Team Arts rounds out the grid in 20th. Good Lord, Stairs, how do you do this every week?
Oh, I love it. And here we are with a full grid. We are ready for race 2, and I hope I can call it better than I called the start of race 1. We've got a full grid, and Brenton Hobson is on pole position from Lewis Wedding. You've got Hobbo on the right, Lewis on the left, Devonish in 5th place. Sorry?
Hobson is on the left, Lewis is on the right.
I mean like on off screen, not of of the track itself. But nonetheless, we're about to go green, and here we are. We go green, and has anyone gone nowhere? Everyone's got away pretty good.
Incredible start, sorry.
And he's got through the inside there of Lewis Wedding. So Lewis Wedding again is going to have Sam Dunstall ahead of him, but down the inside he's going to get hung out to dry. Sam Dunstall and Lewis Wedding side by side through. Tamburello and Brenton Hobson is in the lead. Brenton Hobson is in the lead. Sam Dunstall second, Lewis Wedding third, Johnny in the 4th place, and Brenton Hobson down in 5th.
Absolutely. So Johnny is all over the back of Lewis.
Brenton Foley down in 5th. I'm so sorry.
No, you're all good. Sam Dunstall, incredible start. Just had so much more paces. Johnny's going down the inside of Tosa. Might have the job done on Lewis, but Lewis managing to hold on to it around the outside, nearly dipping a tyre on the grass, but managed to keep it out. Brenton Foley just hanging back a little bit. We've got Phil Boak under pressure from Will Devonish, which means Phil Boak overtook Will Devonish on the start. Devonish is spinning. Devonish is spun going through Piratella, and he's nearly...
Oh, he's been avoided by everyone. Oh, it's so close. These cars, it's an unsighted corner round a crest and a blind left-hander, and Will Devonish is down in 17th place. Gary Neville is last for some reason, and Rob Dunt hasn't finished the race. Brock Harvey's out, so there's been an almighty accident on the first lap of this race, but we remain green with Brenton Hobson in the lead, Sam Dunstall in 2nd place from Lewis Wedding, and Johnny Looking Racing in 4th. That's your top 4. Brenton Foley is just dropping off the back, and who's behind him? Philip Boak.
Absolutely, as you said in the first race, Lewis Oh, he's under so much pressure from Johnny. Oh my goodness. As Lewis, as you said in the first race, sorry, Phil Boak and Brendan Foley appear to be line astern in any race that they compete in. But Johnny, I reckon, is going to have a bit of a run on Lewis. Never mind, I am an idiot. He has no slipstream at all. He is not going to have a run. He might have a very ambitious dive up the inside of Tamburello, but doesn't look like it. He's smart enough to avoid that. Sam putting the pressure on Hobson, must be said. Decent line through Tamburello and has managed to get a little bit out of shape on the exit, but has not lost too much time. Meanwhile, Philip Boak and Brendan Foley behind them, pretty much parity. Topher leading from David Keane, Dwayne Davies, Matt Williams, Brandon Ross. Matt Devine has managed to get up into 13th place with that fantastic looking Nikon car.
It's a good start for Topher. He's the leading Pro-Am runner and hoping to keep it clean for a win in the Pro-Am series. He had a good qualifying session in race 1. He had a good qualifying session in race 2, but the race didn't go his way in race 1.
Absolutely. Gary Neville in the pits. Looks like he's repairing some damage. That car was leaning very, very heavily on its front left tyre. So I'd be very interested to see what happened in that first lap, but it might be a little bit too far away now. Tez?
Yes, well, it doesn't look like anyone's able to be making a move in this early stage of the race. In fact, it looks, if anything, like Brenton Foley and Philip Boak might just be closing the gap. Or, I mean, actually looking at that image, I retract my previous statement, but they're just spreading out to the point where no one's close enough to make a move. And it's very easy to say something like that and immediately be proved wrong, but that's my observations at this early stage. There's just... It's the early part of the race, and everyone's just sort of thinking about preserving. But as I say that, Lewis Wedding has a run here on Sam Dunstall, and he's out onto the grass. Run the outside of Tamburello. If he gets it, stopped it with the most amazing overtake I've ever seen. He's done it. I don't know how. The car was absolutely out of control on the grass, and then he went around the outside of Tamburello after that.
I think Lewis actually broke at a pretty reasonable point. I think Sam just broke incredibly early. I have no idea whether he was just getting out of the way or what it was. If he was just like, he was terrified that Lewis was going to spear across in front of him, getting out of control on the grass. But it just, like, if Sam just broke probably like 150 meters before the corner, or like whatever an unreasonable early braking point would be, as Lewis is now setting off after Hobson, after... Considering how it looked going into Tamburello, a fairly uneventful overtake.
Well, it was the moment before that I was concerned about. I thought he was completely out of control. The car was in the weeds, and after having made that move, he's under considerable pressure, though. If anything, he's not driving in a way that would potentially mean that he's trying to catch up to Hobson, but he's got Sam Dunstall and Johnny absolutely in his mirrors, so they are going to be looking to fight back. Dunstall's in this sandwich here. It's do or get done. He's got to try and make the move back on Lewis Wedding, or Johnny's going to have him. And there's contact there, and that is Sam Dunstall's fault. That was Sam Dunstall outbraking himself, going for the inside, a gap that was not there, and how Lewis Wedding held it together, I don't know. I'm going to go back and have a look at the replay from the view of Sam Dunstall. Here he is, braking, going for the inside, never going to make that move, not in a month of Sundays. And Sam Dunstall is going to lose the position there to Brenton Foley, the innocent bystander there, and losing the position to Philip Boak. So let's have a look at that again from the view of Johnny, because Johnny had the grandstand view that all of us would have wanted. Here we go. Johnny sees the two guys ahead of him collide, and if he'd just been a little bit tighter on the inside, he might have got both of those positions, but he does gain one position out of it.
Absolutely. You might have heard me just then sounding like I was having a particularly painful bowel movement. That was Johnny tapping Lewis going through Villeneuve. Lewis wiggled under the contact, and it looked like he was about to have a horrible tank slapper going into Tosa, but he's managed to hold on to it. So Johnny all over the back of Lewis, and the early stage of this lap has now dropped back a little bit with that contact, probably wisely. And I imagine Lewis would be quite happy to be clear of Sam, considering he wasn't particularly happy with some of the defensive moves that Sam was putting on in the previous race.
Meanwhile, Philip Boak, the beneficiary of the accident between Brenton Hobson wasn't involved in the accident. He just had to go wide to avoid the contact between Lewis Wedding and Sam Dunstall. Philip Boak gained 2 positions out of that, but he had a massive moment through Aqua Minerale, and he'd be gulping down the mineral water after that to have a little bit of a, I don't know, settle his stomach, because he now has Sam Dunstall for company all over the back of him, and Brenton Foley eager to make amends for a mistake that was not of his own doing.
Absolutely. He was a little bit stiff there, I think. Sam Dunstall,
He was.
After recovering, just put his foot in it and almost like he was a little bit rude, I thought, cutting back in front of Brenton Foley as he came back onto the track, considering that the whole thing was his fault to begin with. But nevertheless, he's all over the back of Phil Boak.
Well, I'm a big fan of Sam Dunstall. I love the way that he's spiced up this series, and he's taking it to some of these guys, but just maybe going a little bit over the limit in some parts of his racing. As speaking of going over the limit, Philip Boak has lost. He's going to lose the position to Brenton Foley, who incidentally went wide at the previous corner, and everything comes back into balance in the universe of Brenton Foley. But Sam Dunstall has, in doing that, made the position up as he goes very wide at Piratella. I know there's wide at Piratella, but that's wide at Piratella. There's a sentence that you wouldn't have expected to say, but Sam Dunstall back up into 4th place, but Johnny's gone. Johnny's 4 seconds up the road and still hounding Lewis Wedding.
Absolutely. He's might do better with a yardstick to chase, as we know a couple of the races in our league have. They're faster when they're behind someone because they know where they can catch them, and they know where to brake, and they sort of have a bit of an eagle eye view of what a degrading tyre looks like on the car ahead. But Johnny managing to stay within a second of Lewis at the moment, so Lewis can't get too comfortable. He definitely can't set about catching up to Brenton Hobson because he is almost 4 seconds down on him already. So
Lewis Wedding though, Lewis Wedding has just set the fastest lap of the race. We saw a purple sector come up for a purple lap come up for Brenton Hobson, which was a 45.7, but Lewis Wedding set a 45.3, so that's 4/10 quicker than Brenton Hobson. Whether Hobson's managing or not, it is a substantial lead in these cars. 3 seconds is quite a distance in these cars, but that's a fair chunk of your lead to lose if you're Brenton Hobson.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, I was interrupted there by
me.
By the Minister of Internal Affairs. So I didn't really hear any of what you just said for the last.
I was just waxing lyrical about Lewis Wedding set a lap 3/10 faster than Brenton Hobson's best.
Oh, fantastic. Well, then, if he can continue to do that, then he won't catch Brenton Hobson by the end of the race. So
yeah, exactly. So long as his Minister for Internal Affairs doesn't order some donuts.
Tap him on the shoulder and want donuts.
But we joke, and Johnny is hanging with Lewis Wedding, and the question for me is how long can that happen? Sam Dunstall, incidentally, is now 7 seconds behind in 4th place. So I get the feeling he's made a mistake somewhere, but he's made a mistake that hasn't been capitalised on by Brenton Foley and Philip Boak.
Absolutely, yeah. Brenton Foley sort of just maintaining that 2.5 second gap to Sam Dunstall, which you talk about maintaining a gap as a positive thing. It isn't when it's the car ahead of you. You want to not maintain that gap. You want
oh yes, but talking in relative terms with where he normally is compared to Lewis Wedding, Johnny we know he's been quite a competitive racer, but he's gone from competing with the likes of a lot of your Pro B runners.
He brakes very late and almost he goes up the inside on Tamburello, nearly sticks his nose where it didn't belong, and possibly got a little bit of brown stuff on it as Lewis potentially squeezed very tightly going through Tamburello, but manages to hold on to it. Matt Williams,
drive through for scruff.
Potentially our first track cut.
Johnny had a run into Tosa, and Lewis Wedding cut it off. There was no way he's going on the inside. There's contact, and Johnny into the side of Lewis Wedding. Will he have to give that back? Lewis Wedding will not be a happy man. it
It
looked
was,
like...
no, that wasn't as a result. That was just Lewis losing it on under throttle, I believe.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, on the screen, it didn't look like they actually contacted, but there was. And Lewis Wedding's dropped a long way back. He's 2 seconds behind. So whether or not there's damage or something, Lewis Wedding. Oh, there's something wrong with that car. It's not handling the way you would expect it to.
If anything, I think he'd be thanking Johnny, because Johnny coming through on the inside tapped Lewis just enough to keep him from spinning completely around.
But why was he spinning?
Because I think can you go back and have a replay? I'm pretty sure he just lit it up under throttle, because Johnny probably spooked him going into Tosa, because Johnny went for the inside that wasn't there, then snapped to the outside as Johnny locks up going into the Ravazzas. And I think he just put the foot down a bit too hard and lit it up. But
I think you might be right, actually. I think you might be right. I gave Johnny a misservice there by calling that as contact. It didn't actually look like they touched on the screen. I thought it must have been just a netcode thing with the collision boxes not being in the right place, but there was a fair air gap between them when Lewis Wedding started to spin, so the fact that Johnny was there, you may have called it, you may well be right that Johnny sort of prevented him from going the full 180.
Yeah, which Johnny probably wouldn't be too happy about, considering now that Lewis is closing
Oh,
down
and
the
considering
gap.
that he's just gone off at Villeneuve and has coughed up that 2-second lead to now a half-second lead.
Lewis needs to calm down.
Yeah, indeed, he's so close. And Sam Dunstall's not, he's in the same picture now, so these guys are closing back up with all of the mistakes that these guys are making. So all of this, Brenton Hobson with a 5-second lead saying, thank you very much, championship, here I come.
Absolutely. So Lewis hoping to get that second place back as Johnny brakes very heavily for Agua Minerale, but manages to keep it on the track. So I guess that's probably one way to do it. Lewis not going to have a go into the Variante Alta, although he did climb back sometimes. I can't understand how these cars are surviving coming out of that chicane. They just appear to be all over the bloody place, but they're somehow driving them.
Just a quick update on the Pro-Am with Topher, who was leading that championship, that race, and he's now DNF'd. It is David Keane is leading the Pro-Am series race now, and so David Keane well ahead of Matt Devine, who's second in class in the car, who you've mentioned is quite a good little. I don't think there's any damage on there. I thought I saw a dent on one side. Oh yes, there is a significant dent on one side. But anyway, he's second in class, so that's pretty good for Pro-Am. But he's under pressure from Will Devonish and Brendan Ross third in class.
Phil Boak has DNF'd, so he and Brendan Foley's inseparable relationship has been separated, unless Foley, I hope he doesn't, DNFs as well, but I'm not sure what happened there, but it might have just been a heavy accident, or it's very easy to go just that little bit too hot into one of these corners and spear yourself into a wall and break something or other, probably some wheels or parts on your car.
Well, Madbird El Chifo said to me he didn't think this would be a good race. He didn't think this would be a good round, that the track wouldn't produce good racing. Well, I have to disagree with him. This has been one of my favourite rounds.
Has he never seen Imola? Imola is a fantastic track. It is a track that we need to see more of, I believe, especially in a 4 decades of Imola style series, which may be coming to you in the future from a particular YouTube channel.
Subtle. Lewis Wedding is in third place and absolutely breaking himself down into Ravazza. He looked at John. I think he got a little bit spooked there by Johnny, and as a result, he's nowhere near close enough out of Ravazza too. Johnny holding his own here, looking good for another second place finish. We may well have the same podium we had in race 1, but a completely different way of getting there.
Absolutely. So, and if he does manage to pull this second place off, it'll have been an incredible drive from Johnny to overtake one of the strongest drivers in the league and in AMS Australia in general, I'd say, and also then to defend it for the better part of half the race. He overtook on like lap 5, lap 6. So
you're testing my memory.
You're
Oh, Lewis Wedding with a huge moment out of Villeneuve, but he saves it as he always does. There was a clip from one of the GT3 races earlier on of him somehow saving a lose out of 130R. Lewis Wedding has this uncanny ability to save it when you didn't think it was physically possible. But as a result, the ground he's lost to Johnny seems almost, well, as Brian Walsh gets a drive-through penalty, seems almost insurmountable.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's just keeping a clear head. In that situation, the car's starting to spin, I'd be screaming,
Oh, he's had another moment there through mineral water, through Aqua Minerale there, so that's not ideal.
Absolutely. I'd be
Tyres
flinging the wheel
screaming.
everywhere. He just keeps his head cool, and like Max Verstappen at Interlagos that one time when he was spinning, just cool head, just straightened up the wheel and put the brakes on a little bit and just slowed the car down and brought it out of the spin. So he knew what he was doing, he knew what he had to do, and he executed. So that's an incredible feat as he locks up going into the Ravazas. He's all over the place now, but that save was something that a lesser driver would not be able to do.
Indeed. Well, Lewis Wedding's tyres, I think, screaming for a divorce, but Matt Devine is not very far behind in second in class in his very first Pro-Am race here. I think it's his very first Pro-Am race. I may well be corrected on the YouTube chat. If there's anyone watching, now's your chance to correct me if you can do the research. But Matt Devine himself under enormous pressure from Will Devonish, who doesn't seem to have had the pace that he had in the first race. He was well up there in race 1, but in race 2 he's down there in 8th place. He'll still get quite a handy haul of points in Pro AB, but because Matt Devine and David Keane are both in Pro-Am, so it means he will be classified in 6th place.
You weren't joking about that dent on the door, good lord.
Devonish up the inside at Tamburello, and that position is done. He's up into 7th place, and Matt Devine relegated to 8th place, but still second in class.
Brendan Foley going off at Villeneuve, so not managing to take the battle to Sam Dunstall up in 4th position, but if he manages to pull that home, 5th is a pretty solid result. As Will Devonish is spinning out in front of Matt Devine, so Matt takes that position back and it sets off after David.
He has a huge lead over Luke, though, so he won't lose any further positions. So Will Devonish looks like he's set to finish in 8th place now. So I think we ought to commend Matt Devine on an excellent debut. 7th place in his very first race. 7th place in outright. 2nd place in class.
Absolutely, very good and worthy of the car. I take back the things that I was saying in warm up and qualifying. He's done the car proud, I'd say, as we're crossing over for the final lap here.
Indeed, we are.
Lewis Wedding and Johnny.
Well, Matt Devine unintentionally driving for the Canon Nikon team, who both of your commentators here are proud employees of and founders of. The Canon Nikon R-Tech. There's various
Bird Staircase Technologies racing team.
Matt Devine, you've joined an illustrious line of drivers, including myself, yourself, and Matt Devine.
Now, Stairs.
Yes.
I have talked this up somewhat.
Have you?
And as we're nearing the end of the race, Lewis Wedding in 3rd position, Brenton Hobson with a commanding lead, 6 seconds over Johnny in 1st position, and even if he managed to pull over and let everyone pass him, I believe still impossible to not win the championship in this race. The Porsche Boxer Cup is a curious thing. Can make one man weep and another man sing, and today the man singing is definitely Brenton Hobson with a world championship. I say world championship, an AMS Australia championship under his belt, and the man weeping, probably not too hard, but still would be Lewis Wedding in the Mountain Dew car, and that was an incredibly horrific misquoting of the incomparable Huey Lewis in the news.
Well, one man who will not be wanting to go back in time is Brenton Hobson. He's exiting Ravazza 2 right now to win race 2 and win this championship in the most commanding way possible. He was visibly, he was audibly disappointed last week when he lost race 1. He's now won 3 races in a row, his longest streak of wins in this entire championship, and what a time to bring it up. He is the Automobilista Australia Super Series 1 champion, and what a more deserving champion. I mean, I don't think there is one. And Johnny, with a well-deserved second, Lewis Wedding brings it home for third place to indeed create the very first podium, which is exactly identical in race 2 and race 1. That's the first time that's happened in this Super Series. Sam Dunstall finishes 4th, Brenton Foley 5th, and David Keane, your Pro-Am winner. And that's something that he's been long overdue. He's been doing very well in the Rookie Cup, and a few weeks ago we saw a very well executed fuel-saving endeavour to snatch a podium in the race at Ibarra. But here he is, a race winner in Pro-Am here in Imola, and Matt Devine on debut, 2nd in class, followed by Will Devonish, who's 8th, and Luke 3rd in class to round out the podium for Pro-Am.
Absolutely. So, commiserations to you, Lewis Wedding. I was saying if you won that race, I'd be wanting the boxes that you're wearing right now, mate. But I'll pass on that for tonight. How do you... Decent race there for you. Still 3rd, obviously. I don't think you can be too upset considering you weren't in the first half of the season. But still, no longer a possibility that you'll take out the championship.
After missing those first few rounds, that sort of killed off any chances. I was just hoping, obviously, to come race and get some good results. Obviously, my first 2 races, I sort of Bradbury them both and got a couple wins, and have been pretty competitive at most places. So I'm quite happy with the way obviously the season's panned out. I haven't been quite as fast as Hobbo, and he's been there every race, and he's been fast every race, so he's deserved the championship. So congratulations.
Absolutely, and yourself, decent battle there with Johnny. Little bit rude going into Tosa, and then it looks like you just got a little bit heavy on the loud pedal coming out, and luckily he tapped you right, stopped you from spinning all the way around. So possibly some thanks going his way.
Probably not.
It's not the way he saw it, I feel.
No, there was some stuff that went on at the first chicane. I got dive bombed a couple of times in that race. I wasn't too pleased about. Yeah, so I had to unfortunately get the elbows out a couple of times. Obviously, Sam, I went to, well, when I was behind him after the first lap, he broke really early for that first downhill left-hander.
Ah, yes.
And I didn't try and pass him, but it was just that he broke 10-15 meters earlier than what you normally would. And then like he would have seen me coming and just turned in. Like I wouldn't have, and I was a little annoyed at that. And then at the start, he sort of chopped in front of me. He got a better start. He would have got in front, but he just sort of hit me and stuff. And then he tried to when I got past him, he tried to dive bomb me from 50 meters back. And I had a choice of either not making the corner and then losing 2 positions because Johnny would have got past me having to slow down, or just turning in, and I just had to just turn in. So he went around, and then later on in the first chicane, Johnny himself, he came from a long way back, and there's only one line through that chicane, and I was already committed. So he ran into me again, and both times I got that there was the contact. The rear right tire, obviously, got a little bit warmer, and each time I'd come up to the toes and the chicanes, and it'd just be a bit more taily. And that time it caught me out. So obviously the tap did help, but it was just a little frustrating getting the tap a bit earlier. That sort of off-put me a bit. But 3rd place and decent speed, nailed quali, and Bobo just did a better job.
Well, yes, we saw it was quite the shootout with qualifying, and it was looking like a bit of a head-to-head between Lewis Wedding and Brenton Hobson there until Brenton Hobson, you pulled out a 44 at the end, and I think it was a 44, and then there was another 6/10 I think you took out of Lewis Wedding, and from that moment on, we knew that you'd found your rhythm around Imola, and winning a race to win the championship must feel pretty good.
Yeah, it sure does. pretty happy with that. So despite all my efforts, I didn't manage to lose the championship in the end. But yeah, that quali lap, that was a perler of a lap. I didn't really know if I could even do a 44. Like I thought theoretically I could. I knew that I probably could, but I wasn't really certain. And then yeah, to go and just stomp out a lap that was half a second better than I even wasn't sure if I could do. That was a really good lap.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, you did have it in the bag already. Lewis Wedding wasn't on a lap. He'd exited back to his garage, and, I mean, there were one or two guys still on track, but not guys who were setting the timing screens alight. So that was just for pride, that final lap, because you already had pole in the bag.
I just like to keep going until the very last second. I don't really have a conventional qualifying style because most people who are actually good tend to come out and nail a lap and that's it. That's all I need to do. But I tend to do it sort of like a race run. I just go out and do a lap and then build up a little bit quicker the next lap and so on. Well, if the session went for half an hour, imagine how quick I'll be at the end. I seem to go a little quicker each time. So
maybe we should have one-shot qualifying. That'd make it interesting.
Well, yeah, we have done that a couple of times in the league, and I tend to do okay across one lap. But I seem to be really good when I can get a run going, sort of 3, 4, 5 lap run, and just get right into a rhythm. And even though the tyres are starting to go away, for some reason, that's my sweet spot.
Well, it seems to be. You just keep getting better and better with like a fine wine. It has to be said. So every single lap you improved, I think, in that qualifying session from what I saw. And then the race itself, after Sam Dunstall got by Lewis at the beginning of the race, you just sort of made a gap and you were never really troubled from there. We didn't really... I mean, your sponsors probably wouldn't be too happy. You didn't get a lot of airtime because there wasn't really much going on for your race.
I'd much rather take a race with no airtime than a race like that first one where I was all in amongst it. It's a lot more cruisy sort of a race when you don't have to worry about that. But, I was nervous at the start. As soon as I saw Sam get through, I saw how he raced in the first one, and I just didn't want to be a part of it. But I wasn't sure if I could shake him, and knew he was aggressive early. I just sort of had to hope that I could hold on and sort of not be too vulnerable. I wanted to look after the tyres because, in the first race, my tyres and his both went off a lot. So my goal was just to try and stay in front without using up too much of the car. I wasn't pushing very hard, and I think all the way through the race, my lap times were within a tenth or so either way, just the whole way through. I never fell off the pace I was doing, but I didn't want to push too hard early and then have to really struggle with it later either. So I was a little nervous for those first couple of laps, and then when I saw him battling behind, and I don't know what happened, a couple of cars went off or something, but I was just happy then and could just sort of sit on my pace and do it for the whole race.
Well, yeah. We saw at one stage when Lewis got past Johnny and then he banged in a lap that was about 0.3 of a second faster than what you had done at that stage. Did you sort of notice that? Were you aware that he might have been closing in at that point, or were you just focused on your own race?
I did see it, one sneaky little eye out of the corner there looking down at the relative. I saw that he'd made a gain on that lap, and I was ready to respond and, if I had to, but I wasn't really convinced that he could run 0.3 quicker a lap every lap, not use up his tyres, because I was pushing fairly hard within my boundaries, So I figured if he was going to catch me, he might, but he would have to use up a lot of his car to get there, and then I'd probably have a little bit in the tank if I needed it. So I was just sort of watching and seeing. But, he had good speed. He did have all the guys actually had a lot better race pace than even I was expecting tonight. Like after that qualifying session, I thought there's no way anyone's going to touch me, but in the race itself, I was not as fast as I was in that qualifying session.
Well, very interesting to see the dynamic at a non-Australian track, the first we visited since Monza, and producing an interesting result in that respect.
Yeah, I actually really, really enjoyed the race tonight. The track was a heap of fun. I straight away just loved it when I first turned a wheel here this week. So I was very, very happy with the track. I really enjoyed it. I like racing on the Australian tracks. That's one of the things that probably draws my appeal for Automobilista. But in saying that, we're doing it in the V8, so I'm happy to sort of run some different stuff in the Super Series, because it's those international tracks. They're the best in the world for a reason.
Well, I can't agree with you more there. Many, many congratulations on becoming the very first AMS Oz Super Series champion. We've got, obviously, Brock Harvey, the founder of the Facebook group here, and Scruff, the leader, the El Chief. Any words as you know, in your illustrious positions as you're in for Brenton for Brenton Hobson?
You want me to go first, Gruff? Or?
I'll let you take it, mate.
No, yes. Is probably the better answer for that.
They're not going to be good words, but he's got some.
Really, really pleased, and yeah, couldn't be more impressed with Hobbo and the way he presents himself. And it's I'm personally happy because it's a short shift car that's won the championship, and has effectively dominated the championship. So really good for our team, Scruff. But I couldn't think of a better champion for our first champion than Hobbo. He's fast, he's clean, he presents well. He's the full package. So really happy to see his name go up as the Automobilista Australia Season 1 Super Series champion. And this is the Super Series it's our core series, so it's probably the most important one that we run. So for him to take away the chocolates of that, well done, Hobbo. Really proud of you, mate.
And,
Yeah.
there you go. Sorry, Hobbo.
No, by all means, if you want to add on that, that's fine.
Just massive congratulations to you, mate. You came in and dominated straight away, and without you, we'd probably be 100, 200 members less than what we've actually got, because you've given us great exposure. So, as far as deserving champions in all aspects, you came in, you helped us grow the group the way it has come along, and just absolutely dominated everywhere you've raced. So, massive congratulations, mate, and hope to have you on board for Season 2.
Yeah, cheers, cheers guys. Obviously, yeah, thanks for you to putting it all together. The whole AMS Oz thing, I came on board and really loved it off the bat. So that's why I've been here, and that's why I've stuck around, not just to give great exposure to the league or anything. I'm here because I enjoy it, and it's actually been really cool to see. When I first started, I think that first V8 supercar race we did at Adelaide, I think I won by like 35 seconds with one eye closed. And then since then, the competition has really risen. It's been great to watch, and it's not really a walkover ever anymore. Sometimes it might look like it, but it really isn't. You can't just sort of dawdle around and still pick up a win in any of the series anymore. So, hats off to you guys for what you've done, what you've put together, and a bit of work goes into it. A lot of people probably don't realise that. So, hats off to you guys, and thanks for having me on board. Glad to pick up a win. I never win anything, so I'm happy to pick up a championship. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'll be back for Series 2. Already got that Lancer painted up, ready to roar.
Can't wait for it. Bit more entertaining than V8 Scops then, hey?
Yeah, it's different, very different.
Very different. Well, yes, as Scruff said, the videos that you post every Friday after the Thursday races is something I think we all look forward to, and can't wait for tomorrow's instalment. But effectively, that's all she wrote for the Super Series in terms of wrapping up your champion. But we still have 2 rounds to go, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go off the air, we're just going to quickly remind you of all the races that are coming up. We have the GT3s, which are back for round 6 at Sebring on Sunday, and then Super Series round 10 next week from I believe the Formula 3 version of the Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire. That's next Thursday. That's the penultimate round before Bathurst. I bet you can't wait for that. Or anyone watching, listening, racing, that's going to be an absolute ripper when Super Series goes to Bathurst. Although I'm sure from now on, it's basically not that you have changed your approach based on points throughout the series, but you'll be just looking for wins regardless from here on in.
Oh yeah, everyone else better look out from here on in. Main business from here.
That's it. But I think it's Lewis who mentioned it earlier on. I don't know if it was off air or on air, but whenever Bathurst gets a run, we see more people join in. So we saw Dane Warren and Ethan Warren and a few others. Dylan Shepherd were around for Winton. They may come back for Bathurst. So the competition is expected to be very high for that one.
And no doubt will be, and it should be a good way to wrap up the series. At least I don't have to worry about trying to bank points with all those people if they do turn up. So it'll be good fun. I hope that there's a big turnout. I hope there's a high level of competition, and I hope it's a good show. I'm sure it will be.
Absolutely. And then following that, we've got the Formula 3, speaking of crowning champions, Formula 3 final round, round 5 from Albert Park. We've got Greg Nangle and Heath Dixon very close, and Lewis Wedding still, with the possibility of pulling a rabbit out of the hat with that one. That should be a good one. And that's coming up on Sunday the 17th of June in Sunday week, so not too far away. The V8s are coming up, not on your screen, but they're coming up, I believe, at the end of this month. That'll be from Hidden Valley, so that's been a series that we've all been missing quite a lot because they've been on a bit of a break at the moment. And that's the series, Mad Bird, that you've been... Oh, Mad Bird's gone. All right, well, we won't throw back to him.
I'll be Mad Bird if you like instead.
Oh, Mad Bird, what are you looking forward to the Hidden Valley round of the V8 Supercars?
Yeah, absolutely. Love the hot track, love the hot atmosphere of Darwin, and hopefully see some hot action on the track as well.
Absolutely. Echo your sentiments entirely. This has been round 9 of the Automobilista Australia Super Series, brought to you by Short Shift Podcast and Apex Rear Wing. Once again, I've been Stairs. My partner in commentary has been Madbird. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Bye for now.